Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. I'm Thomas Vick, joined by Seth Wilson. Seth, how are you today?
Thomas, I'm doing wonderful. It's a little gray and dreary this time of year. We've had a lot of rain and stuff. So, trying to keep the energy level high in the midst of the clouds out there and getting some fresh air and doing some stuff. But we are doing great overall. How about you?
Doing great, doing great. It's cloudy, but a little bit warmer today. Mid 40s here in the Indianapolis area. I guess I'll take that over 0 degrees and a negative 20 wind chill.
That's exactly right. And we were talking before we started recording. We both had the chance to watch the Indiana Pacers play last night, which was a lot of fun. And that always gets you kind of excited being around that many people kind of cheering on their team. And that energy is kind of fun.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that you were 4 sections or 5 sections away from me. We could have met up and chatted a little bit, but it was good. It was a good game to go to for sure.
It was, maybe next time we can record the podcast out in the pavilion or something like that and get somebody to stop by and see what's going on, right?
There you go. There you go.
Live and on location at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Hey, I was reading through your blog digest this morning and came across an article that I thought was really helpful, just especially for younger families, kind of considering what and when and how to get their estate planning done. And you came up with, I thought, 5 pretty good reasons why younger families need wills, and thought it'd be good to chat through that today.
Yeah. Reason number 1 is protecting your children. That's the first reason why a young family needs to have an estate plan, for a couple different reasons under that. One major reason, protecting your children. The first one under that is what happens to your kids if both parents were to pass away. You need to name a guardian of your kids, so that there's a specific person that you want taking care of your kids actually having the authority to do so, and a court will know that that's what your wishes are. And the second one is to manage who's going to take care of the money for the kids. I think it's pretty common these days for young families, and it's certainly wise for young families to have life insurance on the lives of the parents, so that if a breadwinner or, both parents were to predecease, there are some funds available to take care of the kids. And term life insurance policies are pretty affordable for young families. I don't have a specific quote in front of me, but it can be 20, 30, or $40 a month. And that's pretty doable for a young family, and it provides a lot of protection for the kids and for, the surviving spouse if the breadwinner is to predecease. So those are a couple of reasons why having an estate plan is important to protect your children.
Yeah, I think that guardian piece is so important, and quite honestly is one of the biggest challenges young families typically have in setting up their documents. It's not really the asset division and those kind of things. It's who's going to take care of the kids if something happens to us. And that's always the discussion and the challenge that, well, does your sister take care of them, or does my sister take care of them, or my parents or your parents? And trying to figure that out can be somewhat challenging for everyone. And so what I usually do is let folks kind of talk that through a little bit, and then I just kind of say, hey, can we just have a frank conversation here? If this scenario occurs, we are at the worst case scenario for your kids, because both of you are gone. And what we're trying to get to is a next least worst case scenario. And, we want to be thoughtful and careful and plan out as best we can, but having that protection in place so that it's not subject to the whims of your family and or the whims of the court in terms of getting a judge to make that determination about who should be the guardian is really vital. And you can always change it as time goes on.
Yeah, you can always change it. And my experience has been, it's not the act of doing the estate plan that makes it difficult. It's the emotional decisions behind it that make it difficult. And I think naming a guardian of the children is probably the most difficult emotional decision that is made in an estate plan, but it's necessary, and that's why we call it an essential reason for doing estate planning. You've got to have that in place. You know, families, all the various family members that are contained within a family, the extended family, they all want to take care of the kids, maybe, and the parents understand that, and they need to be able to kind of decide so that those family members aren't fighting over the kids in a guardianship hearing, if both parents were to pass away. So, really important, difficult to do. It's essential to do a will to protect the kids. Reason number 2 is ensuring your assets are distributed according to your wishes. How about you lead us off on that point, Seth?
Yeah, I think this one often goes hand in hand with the beneficiary designations on your life insurance policies. And a big piece of that is we all often see where we name alternating spouses, but then what happens next? And how do we protect those funds? Let's use a $100,000 life insurance policy as an example. If you have 2 young children, and you beneficiary designate those 2 young children, you may have caused some challenges in terms of managing those funds, in terms of how the children are going to be able to get access to those funds if you haven't set that up properly in your estate plan. And so it's really helpful to have that governing document, whether that's a will or a trust, set out what the terms are for the use of those proceeds and be available to catch those proceeds as a designated beneficiary of the policy. So you will physically actually change the beneficiary designation on those life insurance policies to name a subtrust for the kids, so that the trustee has access to those funds and the kids aren't getting those outright or making those subject to some sort of court approval or court protected account for those funds. And that's generally where I see that come into play. Obviously, you've got the real estate to handle as well. So how do you suggest handling real estate if a young family has a house and is in a minor situation with their kids?
Yeah, I think that having a house and a trust is a great way of doing it, so that the trustee is able to have the discretion to decide what happens with the house. Maybe it's grandparents need to move in with the kids in the same house that the parents owned, and the kids can continue to live in the house that they've been in. Or maybe in an unfortunate situation, you have to sell the house and use those funds to take care of the kids because the kids might be moving to an uncle or an aunt's house out of state. It just kind of depends, but that's why it's important to entrust the trustee with that discretion. And you could have a provision in the trust that says, we want the kids to stay in this house. So the guardian or the trustee needs to move into the house, and here's what to do with the house and how to make payments. And, once the kids move out, this is what happens. You could get into that level of detail if you wanted to, but, I really like having real estate in a trust so that the trustee has discretion to do whatever he or she might need to do for the children.
Yeah, and you mentioned grandparents in that scenario, and that kind of gets us to that third reason on your blog post is
Yeah.
minimizing that family conflict. And I think sometimes when you think conflict, you maybe fast forward to the worst case scenario you've ever seen, and that's typically not it. That conflict could be just minor conflict, not minor in age, but in terms of, well, it should go over here. What's the best thing to do? Or we all really understand that we want to do what's best for the situation, but we all have a little bit different ideas or opinions about how that should take place. And I think that's kind of the situation I envision for my clients is how do we minimize that trauma, so to speak, because you're already in a pretty challenging scenario if mom and dad are already gone. And so if mom and dad have left clear instructions, that can really help facilitate some level and semblance of normalcy for the kids who are left.
Yeah, I agree with you that if everybody, all the working parts know what the plan was, then there's less room for a debate or discussion on what the parents actually wanted for the children, or how they wanted their money or their assets to be spent for the children. So specify those things, write it down, put it in a trust or a will, and then there's um, less room for dispute. As attorneys, we know you can always make an argument for anything, really. It just may not be successful. But yeah, that's really important that you have a way of minimizing family conflict. And reason number 4 is facilitating a quicker probate process. In Indiana, there's an expectation that an estate administration is done within a year, but you and I know that it often takes more than a year for things to settle and finally be distributed from the estate to the beneficiaries. And if there's a guardianship of the estate, if there's a guardianship for the kids that needs to be set up, that's a probate process unto itself. What happens with the funds between the time that the guardianship petition is filed and when the funds are actually, and the guardianship is established, and then the funds are distributed to the guardian, and then the guardian can distribute and take care of the kids. I just named off 3 or 4 steps there before the kids even get the benefit of the assets of the parents. If you got a trust, it's pretty much immediate access that the successor trustee will have. And what a difference, 2 or 3 months can make to be able to take care of the kids between, a terrible situation and, when they actually can use the funds.
Yeah. And there's again, as you think of kind of the emotional component of that, there is a lot of additional challenge that you're putting on your loved ones in that probate context, and understand that it needs to take place, but there's just additional things that people that will need to do that could impact the kids, and really not intended, but everybody's going to be dealing with a difficult process anyway. And then you're adding in logistical challenges in interfacing with the court, kind of saying, hey, can we do this? The court would say, then yes, you can. And yet that process may take 3 days to get that through. And then you got to go to the bank, and then you got to do this and that. So there's a lot of pre work that can be done to help handle those things ahead of time and provide the smoothest runway possible in the event that the worst case scenario occurs.
Yeah, fully agree. And then reason number 5 why young families need to have an estate plan is flexibility and ease of updating. I think this is really just for an individual to understand that what you put down today in a will or a trust doesn't mean that it has to be that forever. I'm sure your practice is like mine, where people say, we did a will in 1985 and we just need to update it because the kids are grown, we have grandkids now, and now it's time to change it. Well, that's what makes estate planning great. It can be flexible, as long as you execute the documents in the proper manner, recommended by an estate planning attorney to help you out with that. You can make changes. To it, and so there's a sense of relief and security, I guess, in the fact that you can make changes to the estate plan documents that you're doing.
Yeah, agreed. And it is a process, right? You have to go through the formalities to make sure that your wishes are up to date and binding on everyone down the chain. But we spend a lot of money in America on different things, access to cable, access to internet, access to cell phones, and those kind of things. And yet we're kind of hesitant to maybe do that ongoing upkeep for some of the most important things in life, which are our estate planning and those kind of things. And I know you and I've talked about how best to provide that service to clients, and how do you structure it so it's affordable and those kind of things. And those are things that we as estate planning lawyers are always looking out for our clients, because when you are starting out with your family, you have lots of considerations going on. You have lots of demand, not only for your time, but for your resources. And that's a challenging spot to be in. And I think our goal is always, we want to come alongside our clients for their lifetime, right? Hence the name of the podcast, and really work through that process with them as they grow and change, and try to figure out ways that works for everybody. So I would encourage folks not to let the cost be the driving force of this. Most of the lawyers I know will work with you on pricing and figure out something that's fair there. But don't hesitate to get those most important documents in place. You can change them and adjust them as needed throughout life. And that's so vital to protecting your loved ones.
Yeah, it really is. Updating estate plans is so important to make sure that they're up to date and accurate and in accordance with your wishes, because things change from time to time. And you're right, we do try to work with clients to make sure that costs are affordable for them, so that they can get the documents in that they need to get in. So, well, those are the 5 reasons. Some of the key, for a young family, having an estate plan is important. To have a guardianship named for your kids, to have asset distribution control, reduce family conflicts, streamline the probate process, and so that you can have some flexibility and adaptability to your estate plan. So those are 5 reasons, 5 takeaways. Anything else you want to add, Seth?
No, I really think this is an important topic for younger families. And again, we know, as we're at different life stages for ourselves, how much the demand on your time is. And it really doesn't take that long to get these things in place once you commit to getting it done. And I think that's one of the big things. You just kind of have to give yourself a deadline and say, hey, I want to get this done this quarter, and I'm going to take the next step to get that done. So if folks are interested in doing that, Thomas, and they're on the south side of Indianapolis, how do they get a hold of you?
vicklaw.org. That is the best place to get in touch with me, vicklaw.org. How about you, Seth?
Well, we are here in the heart of Hamilton County in Noblesville, Indiana, and that is our web address, noblesvilleattorney.com, and you can get a hold of us through there.
All right. Well, another one in the books. Seth, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good, Thomas. Thanks.